Imagine paying $20,000 for college, while the student sitting right next to you pays less than half that amount, all because of a clever legal loophole.
Yeah, I mean, when you just look at the raw numbers, it's pretty shocking.
Right. But we have breaking news that puts those numbers front and center. On March 27, 2026, U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez threw out a massive federal lawsuit against the state of Minnesota.
And this wasn't a small disagreement. The U.S. Department of Justice actually tried to strike down Minnesota's DREAM Act and their North Star Promise programs.
Which are the programs that give in-state tuition and, free college to undocumented students.
Exactly. They wanted those programs completely dismantled.
And what's wild is that when the federal government sued Texas over the exact same issue in 2025, Texas surrendered immediately. They just packed it up. But
Yeah.
Minnesota fought back and won.
They really dug in their heels.
They did. So we are unpacking a giant stack of legal documents, press releases, legislative bills, and news articles today to understand exactly how this legal victory happened.
Plus, we're looking at some heavy new strings that lawmakers want to attach to that free college.
Exactly. Now, to you, the listener, a quick heads up. Because our sources contain highly charged political arguments from both the Trump administration and Minnesota's Democratic leaders, we are not taking any sides today.
Right, no sides.
We are simply reporting the facts and the legal arguments presented in our source material so you can understand the ideas yourself. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
To understand the news hook, we really have to look at the exact federal law the government used to sue Minnesota and the very specific loophole Minnesota used to beat them.
So the Department of Justice went in aggressively. They argued that Minnesota flagrantly violated a federal law, specifically its 8 U.S.C. Section 1623.
Okay, and what does that law actually say?
Basically, it says a state can't give higher education benefits to undocumented immigrants based on state residency, unless, of course, all U.S. citizens get that exact same benefit.
Right. And the DOJ brought out some pretty intense numbers to back up why they were so angry about this.
Oh, yeah. The price difference is huge.
An out-of-state U.S. citizen pays over $20,000 a year at the University of Minnesota. Meanwhile, an undocumented student from Minnesota pays the in-state rate, which is about $8,500.
Which is a massive discount. And the DOJ claimed this pricing structure forces states to, quote, treat Americans like second-class citizens.
So with that kind of pressure, how did Minnesota survive this? I mean, the federal argument seems pretty straightforward.
Well, this is where the brilliant legal structure comes in. Minnesota doesn't actually give the discount based on residency.
Wait, really?
Nope. They don't base it on immigration status either. They base it entirely on educational history.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. A student just needs to attend a Minnesota high school for 3 consecutive years and then either graduate or get a GED.
Wow. So they just completely sidestepped the word residency.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that a U.S. citizen from Ohio could theoretically go to a Minnesota high school for 3 years, and get the exact same deal.
Because the rule applies to everyone equally.
Right. So the judge ruled it is not discriminatory.
It reminds me of a loyalty program in a coffee shop.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it doesn't matter what neighborhood you live in. The barista doesn't check your zip code. It only matters how much time you spent waiting in line at that specific store. If you put in the time, you get the discount.
That's a great analogy. You behave a certain way, you go to the school for 3 years, and you get the local reward.
Right. Defending this tuition, though, isn't just a one-off event. It's actually part of a massive, coordinated legal wall.
Yeah. The Minnesota Attorney General's office has been busy.
Very busy. AG Keith Ellison's office built this wall to protect immigrant populations, and it is driven by some hard economic statistics.
They're pushing back against the federal government on multiple fronts.
Definitely. They sued to stop the federal government from tying FEMA and transportation grants to immigration enforcement.
Which is huge for state funding.
They also won injunctions to stop the sharing of Medicaid and SNAP data, food stamps with Homeland Security. They even blocked an executive order trying to end birthright citizenship.
Right, and A.G. Ellison has a very specific perspective on this. In our sources, he claims he is stopping efforts to force Minnesota to become a colder, less caring state.
But beyond the moral argument of caring for people, why does the state fight so hard for these specific residents?
Well, we have to look at the numbers. Immigrants account for 27% of all physicians and surgeons in U.S. hospitals.
27%? That's more than a quarter of all doctors.
Exactly. And 22% of nursing assistants. You pull those workers out, and the healthcare system collapses.
Wow.
And it's not just healthcare. International students alone inject $488 million into Minnesota's economy.
Nearly $500 million.
Yep. And that money supports 3,430 local jobs. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the legal defense is actually an economic defense.
The state literally needs these workers to survive.
100%. They have an aging population and they need the labor.
So the state beat the federal government to keep college affordable for these students. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, the new bill.
Yeah. Inside the state itself, lawmakers want to attach a massive string to that money. There's a new bill, House File 2241, sponsored by Representative Peggy Scott.
Right, and this bill specifically targets the North Star Promise program.
Let's remind everyone what that is. The North Star Promise gives absolute zero tuition to families making under $80,000.
It's an incredible benefit. But what's the catch they want to add?
The proposed catch is huge. If you take this free money, you must live and work in Minnesota after graduation for the exact same amount of time you received the scholarship.
So 4 years of free college means 4 years of working in the state.
Exactly. And if you leave the state early, your free scholarship instantly turns into a loan.
Oh, wow.
A loan that you must pay back with interest.
That is a very aggressive clawback provision.
It really changes the nature of the money. So what are the competing arguments here?
Well, supporters argue that taxpayers deserve a return on their investment.
Which makes sense from a business angle.
Right. They argue the state desperately needs a guaranteed pipeline of skilled workers. If taxpayers fund your engineering degree, they want you building things in Minnesota, not moving to California.
Okay, but what about the opponents?
Opponents argue this creates heavy roadblocks for low-income students. It traps them. What if they get a great out-of-state job offer or have to move to care for a sick relative? Suddenly, they are hit with massive debt.
I mean, I have to push back a bit based on the sources. Why single out the North Star Promise?
That's the big question.
The state has funded other student grants for years without demanding students stay trapped in the state. Is it fair to suddenly demand loyalty just from this specific group of lower-income students?
And that's exactly what critics are asking.
Yeah.
Are we creating a two-tiered system where wealthier students have freedom of movement, but lower-income students are legally anchored to the state?
It's a massive policy clash.
It really is. And this raises an important question for you, the listener. Think about how state and federal powers clash in your own daily life.
It happens in ways we don't even see.
Exactly. Laws aren't just rules. They're constant tugs of war over money, labor, and demographics.
So what does this all mean? It means education isn't just about learning inside a classroom anymore. It is a battleground for workforce economics, immigration law, and state sovereignty.
And it shows that the exact wording of a law matters. Using the phrase educational history instead of residency literally saved Minnesota's tuition program.
It's brilliant drafting, but I want to leave you with a final lingering question that we haven't discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
If more states realize they can legally offer free college but attach mandatory residency requirements to the money, are we entering an era where young professionals are legally tethered to the states they grew up in?
Like an indentured servitude to the local economy.
Exactly. Totally changing how Americans move and live. Just remember that coffee shop loyalty program. They give you the free drink, but now they want to make absolutely sure you never drink anywhere else.
Right.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious.